And good morning for anybody that's joining us. And I know we do actually have a couple people coming from the West Coast. So it's like 6:30 in the morning there.
Oh,
So those are some pretty dedicated people, I think, that are excited about this one.
nice, nice, nice.
What time is it where you're at, Stephen?
It is 2:30 in the afternoon.
Okay, yeah. So this is a great time for you.
Yeah, yeah. This is perfect time. What time is it for you?
It's 9:30 here, so nice and easy for us.
Nice. A lot of good morning comments there, so that's good. Yeah.
Yeah. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Yeah, somebody on the West Coast is saying thanks, Tyler. Yeah. Yeah. You're welcome. And anytime. But this is going to be really interesting. Look, we've got over 20 people online already. So I'm really excited about this one. So, first off, let me do some introductions. My name is Tyler Coon. I'm the CEO of Savvy STR Agents, and we are real estate agents that exclusively focus on selling short term rentals around the United States. And we're in 5 states right now. Most of you guys already probably know me, but you don't know my counterpart here, which is Stephen Eagles, who's based in Liverpool in England. And Stephen is my revenue manager. He owns a company called Mostly Booked, and they are scaling up revenue management for Pricelabs. Do you do any other software other than Pricelabs?
No, Pricelabs is like our main provider of choice. Yeah. So we do everything through there. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Got it. And do you think that out of all the pricing software, Pricelabs is probably the best?
Pricelabs would probably like if I was to say that. So I don't mind giving them a little bit of PR. I think they're really good. I think it'd be safe to say a lot of them maybe they're all going to have a lot of things that they all do equally, and then they're all going to have their own little things that they might do better than each other. But I believe that Pricelabs, if tamed and if set up correctly, can give you everything that you need. So yeah.
Yeah, got it. And that's really what you focus on, right? Is Price Labs. And so for anybody that's watching, really that's what we're going to dive pretty deep into with Steven, both today and in a couple of weeks. So in a couple of weeks in November, we have a half day advanced masterclass, which you can attend with Steven. I'll be there as well, learning as much as I possibly can. But Steven is my revenue manager. And to give you a hint of the success of his results, when I brought Steven on, I was probably on our newest property, booking up weekends, 2 and 3 day stays. We were booking at great rates, but after I launched, I had weekends booked up until, I don't know, maybe January or February. And uh, then bookings just plateaued. It dropped off a cliff, and it sat stagnant for a little while. And I saw Steven commenting on a Facebook post about him doing revenue management. I said, I'm getting $1,000 a night on the weekends for our newest property. So with what we pay Steven monthly, we make it up in one day, right? If he books out one day a month, we easily make up what Steven costs, right? So I said, well, let's give it a shot. And man, if I don't have 90% of January booked, which is one of the slowest months in Asheville, and that all happened after Steven came on. So he took an already great listing and then just took it totally to the next level where I don't even think right now we have a weekend available until April. And we're pretty much 80-90% occupancy until April right now. And I already have, I think, June and July booked like 70-80% next June and July. And on October 20th this month, I got a booking for October 20th next year, and we only have the calendar open for 12 months. So the results speak for themselves. Right now, we just launched that property in June, and we have $235,000 in bookings on that property, and a lot of that can be attributed to what Steven does. So, Steven, take it away. Tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do, and your tactics.
Yeah, awesome. So I would say, I can't take all credit for that. Obviously, Tyler done an amazing job in creating a really unique space that a lot of groups, large groups in particular, it's hitting the nail on the head in terms of design and amenities. So you obviously did a great job there, Tyler. So we've just come on and tried to squeeze that little bit more, which is typically what we do for a lot of hosts. We take hosts who have got maybe struggling listings, and help bring them up to a level that is satisfactory. Or we take, hosts that have got listings that are doing good, they're doing well, but they're just maybe not being aggressive enough in terms of trying to squeeze every dollar out of their listing and attract as many, I don't know, midweek bookings as they possibly can, ensuring every single weekend is filled, and that it's moving in accordance to demand in terms of seasonality or major events, and the prices are properly fluctuating based on their sort of market. So yeah, essentially what we do at Mostly Booked, the clue is in the name. We help property owners get their listings mostly booked most of the time, as well as we possibly can. And essentially, I guess you could say we just have taken the time to spend more time than most hosts would on their listings from a pricing point of view. There's obviously a little bit more skill to it than that. That's a bit of a simplification. But we do find that most hosts maybe aren't being as strategic as they could be with their pricing strategy, and maybe they are not monitoring it often enough or tweaking and changing it often enough to just really squeeze every dollar out of it. So yeah, we've started out with we sort of manage a lot of listings here in the UK, and we do have quite a few that we're slowly acquiring now overseas as well in the US. And so, yeah, we're just trying to do our best to help hosts get more out of their listings, and definitely get more out of using the dynamic pricing softwares, where they'll often set things up and not know, am I doing well? Am I not? And could I be doing more? So we're essentially bridging that gap in a nutshell.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's incredible. So, how often do you go in and actually tweak the settings in Pricelabs? I know that's something a lot of hosts struggle with, is how often should they be playing with things?
Yeah, well, I think a lot of people sort of think that because it is a dynamic pricing software, they'll sort of set it up for the first time. And obviously, there's a lot of different settings, and it can be quite overwhelming. So people, I would say the biggest mistake that maybe people make is they trust Pricelabs too much. They give it too much power, even though it's amazing what it does in terms of automation, and it's an amazing source of data. I always tell people, like, it is the vehicle, but you are the driver, so the results that you get from it are going to be very dependent on how well you get to know all of its features, which are the ones to use, which are the ones not to use. But in terms of the frequency of updating your prices, I would say, it depends on how many listings you have and everything, but at least once every couple of days, is essential for certainly paying attention to maybe the next 4 weeks or the next 6 weeks. So I'd be looking in, if I was a typical host, I'd be looking at the beginning of the week and saying, okay, what have we got going on this weekend? Are there any empty days? What can I do to sort of influence that by applying different discounts, promotions, by reducing rates? What am I in comparison to my competitors right now? Because you've kind of got to know a lot about your direct competitors and what they're doing. Because if you're looking at this week and it's currently empty, and your prices are sitting at a certain level, it's maybe there's 5 more people that are going to make a midweek booking, and
Mhm.
once those 5 people are gone, they're gone. And so you've got to know, well, in terms of my direct competitors, in terms of like for like quality, what are they priced at? Have they all
Yeah.
slashed their prices, and they're going to take all of those 5 bookings for themselves, and I'm going to be left empty? So it really is, it's a game of knowing what's happening in your market. And that kind of does touch on another point there, which a lot of people think you should ignore the competition, almost like it's some kind of, you should know your worth and your value, and it's like the market doesn't work like that. The market says, I'm going to go for whatever gives me the best value for money, essentially.
Mhm.
So yeah, I would say, in a long way of answering the question, you should be doing it at least once or twice a week. you
Yeah.
know And if you've got this week covered, you should be paying attention to the next week, the week after, the week after. And the more you can get ahead like that, so you're not sort of looking at things week to week, it's more like maybe month to month, then that's the ideal scenario.
Yeah, got it. Okay, that's really interesting. What are some of the most common mistakes that you see? Like when you go into a host Price Labs and you're just taking over their revenue management, what do you see that just makes you go like, "Oh no, what have they been doing?"
Yeah, yeah, I get it. I would say, I mean, the one that we've just touched on is not, I would say, not changing the rates enough. You know, the frequent, most hosts do tend to say to me, um, maybe they check it once every few weeks. Some are even worse than that, which to me is like crazy, because it's gotta be more like, once or maybe even twice a day at times. You've got to be doing everything you can to influence the bookings. So that would be the first major thing. Um, Another thing would be there's so many settings on there that are set up to give you more freedom in terms of like automated features that actually give the software almost too much power. Again, going back into the whole Price Labs is the vehicle, you are the driver. It's all right having a Lamborghini, but if you put someone in the seat that can't drive, it's going to end in disaster, and that often happens. We see with people's Price Labs accounts. They have the biggest one is like the demand factor. There's a setting that you can change the demand factor to sort of high or low. You can change the sensitivity of it. So one of the first things that we always do is get control over that, because Pricelabs is an amazing source of data, but if you leave it to be the driver, it can really hinder you, not help you. So I would say that goes into the next point of most hosts don't really take the time to learn the software. They believe it's like a plug in and play. Oh, that's great. I can now have the abilities of a seasoned revenue manager without me actually having to do much. But what they should actually do is, like any piece of software that you use in your day-to-day life or your business, you've got to spend at least 20 hours learning all of the fundamentals, right? What are all these tools? Getting to know them. They've got like tons of training videos on the website, for example. And I would just really take the time to get to know the tools and then test implementing things one by one. So you kind of get to know which tools to use and which ones not to. But if you are going to sign up to this training, we will be giving you a sort of a very quick path as to know which tools to use and which ones not to.
Yeah, that's amazing. I guess if you were looking at what has been most effective, can you share the number one thing that you like? If you're going to take over an account, the first thing that you go in and you log into their Price Labs account and you go check and or change, what would that be?
I would say there's quite a few. But I would say ultimately it has to be, we have to look at the quality of the listing, the number of reviews, how desirable is it in comparison to the other competitors in the area. For example, is yours beachfront or is yours not beachfront, but most are? Does yours not have a swimming pool and most of your competitors have a swimming pool? And is the price difference sort of reflective of that? So I guess the number one thing would have to be complete familiarization of the market, and where we rank in that market. Are we pricing ourselves like we're a 9 out of 10 when really we're a six? You know, so that is, I would say, that's the main thing. Is there's a certain number or sweet spot that we find with a lot of clients' listings. It will fly out at that sweet spot, and oftentimes I would say a lot of hosts maybe are guilty of trying to overprice a listing, especially when it doesn't necessarily justify it. So there is an art to it, because the algorithm, if you keep getting booked at like what you would let's say you priced your listing slightly less than you would typically want, However, you were getting booking after booking after booking, and it's non-stop. Sometimes that's a better thing to do than trying to say, no, actually I'm a 10, and I'm going to price it like I'm a 10, but you're not getting as many bookings, and then the algorithm doesn't like you as much, so you're not getting pushed as high. So the first thing I would say is familiarize yourself with, be non-biased, and figure out where you rank your listing in the market. And a great tool within Pricelabs, which is one of the things we're going to teach, is how to set up your comp sets. So that will pull in all of the data for only like for like listings that you choose. Okay, I want to know what they are doing at all times. So that's a really great tool. Yeah, I would say that would be the first thing. Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Awesome. That's incredible. So I want to actually dive into my listing a little bit here. And so that way we can kind of show people exactly what's happening, what's booked, what is working, what's not working. So if you see here, I have the Rank Breeze plugin installed where you can get a pretty easy glance at what the revenue is, what the occupancy rate is right now for the next 90 days, what the average daily rate is. When we bought this place, we actually only estimated the occupancy rate at 65%. So even right now, I'm booked at 70% for the next 90 days. So you can see that there's already been an impact there. I also estimated, and we ran this property and underwrote this property and purchased this property on a $750 a night average daily rate. And right now, Stephen has got us all the way up to $1,120 for the next 90 days, which is crazy, more than 25% higher than we thought. And if you consider, this isn't just weekends, this is for every day. So just imagine if he's had to go down to $600 or $700 a night on weekdays, what this actually is on the weekends to bring this up to 1120 for the next 90 days. So for me, that's really nice. One thing looking though is if you look at the actual average daily rate, and I always like to point this out to people as a flaw in just reviewing the pricing that's on Airbnb and then looking at the average daily rate that's on Airbnb and taking like this $680 a night as gospel. If you looked at my property and said, oh, well, Airbnb says that ADR is only 680, you would underestimate my revenue by half, right? If my actual average daily rate's 1120. And so what this rate is comprised of is the days that are left to be booked. That's the average daily rate for the days that are left to be booked, which, as you can see, we have a couple days here between October and November. We've got a couple dates here in November that Steven's going to work on trying to get filled up. But as you can see, we've got all the way through December's like half booked. January is like incredible. There's only a few days left. Even February's got some good bookings here already. I think we're at, I don't know, 8,000 or 9,000 already for February when I looked. If you look even into next June, look at this, it's already almost fully booked. July already almost fully booked. So, Stephen, what is your methodology when it comes to these far out bookings? Like, how did you make this happen? Because before you came on, this wasn't happening. I was getting a lot of bookings and I was happy with where I was at, but you came in and just doubled that down. So how did you do that, especially for these longer far out bookings?
Yeah, so as a combination of things, I would say we use like promotions to encourage longer stays so that the guest can, not only do you get greater SEO, but the guest can sort of see what they're saving by every extra additional day that they book. So they're like, if they were considering booking Thursday to Monday, they're like, okay, what happens if I was to travel on the Wednesday? And they can see that there's a financial incentive to do so, as opposed to just being at some kind of flat rate system. So that would be the first thing that is helping. The other thing is, I guess it's all about, I find that what most people tend to do is they have their calendars open for 12 months, but I would say anything from like maybe even month 6 onwards, they price it so high that they might as well not have their availability open. It might as well say this client does not accept bookings from 6 months onwards because the prices are that high. I don't know who sort of put this rule out in the Airbnb space where it's like, just price it insanely high. Now you can price it a little bit higher, and you can make sure there's a bit of a premium for guests who are booking super far out. But I would say the main thing to do is focus on getting bookings with as maximum lead time as you possibly can. So we try to price right far out. We don't put this insane shelf on getting these bookings, because it's ultimately just going to make our lives much harder. And this is where the sort of risk factor comes into play. I think for this specific listing we're looking at here, is a little bit of a juggernaut, and does do extremely well. Whereas I think other listings, might tend to struggle. We can be a bit more brave in terms of the nightly rate far out with this listing. But there is certainly an argument for a lot of hosts that might be watching this, in which I would say to them, look at what you want for next May, next June, next July, taking into consideration, what did you earn last year? Were you happy with that? What are your like-for-like competitors doing in terms of monthly revenue? Which you can get access to all of that data on Pricelabs, which we're going to go through on the training. And then sort of make a decision on a rate that you'd be really happy with, but that isn't crazily above market like most people are doing, and you can scoop up all your bookings much earlier, rather than leaving it to that like last 6 weeks or last 12 weeks where all hosts are sort of then fighting for those bookings. Maybe some of them are losing the cool and start to drop the nightly rate because they get a bit scared and fearful, like, oh, my calendar isn't full, and then they start dropping the rates, and then everybody else starts dropping the rates. And what you actually end up with is people all achieving a lesser nightly rate than they would have if they would have just priced right far out, instead of pricing astronomically. So I would say they're the two of the key things.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's awesome. And so the training that Stephen is referring to, I think this is November. I think it's 18th,
Yeah.
and we're going for half a day. After that, we're also going to have a live one-on-one Q&A. And we're also going to have recordings available for that. So Stephen is going to teach advanced step by step, hour by hour. So here, sometime in the next couple of weeks, Stephen will go ahead and put out exactly what's going to be in that course, hour by hour.
Yeah.
This is going to be an advanced masterclass on exactly the steps that he takes from beginning to end on how to price a listing like this, how to get those types of bookings. There's nobody that I've spoken to so far that looks at, what we've been able to do with my listing and didn't want to do the same for their listing. One thing that I'll mention is like, it's not just for me, it's not just about getting the best rates, but I also get the absolute best guests, because these people that book, and they book a year in advance, and they book for $1,200 a night. These people, they don't care when there's a small issue. I don't, and that's really been my personal experience with these kind of people. These are planners, and they also aren't going to they're not going to sweat the small stuff, right? And so I'll give you a great example. Our second guest, the well went out, and we had to replace the well, and the water was coming out a bit dirty. And all I did, I messaged them in advance. I let them know, hey, this might be an issue for your first day. We just installed a new well pump. They didn't mind at all. No refund needed. The third guest, my hot tub broke, wasn't working, which is a huge amenity here in Asheville. And same thing, no refund. The guest totally understood. I have guests that, because of what we've done with the listing, we put so many amenities and the experience for them inside as well, that they've put in their review. They didn't even make it to the backyard, to the fire pit or the hot tub back there. So for me, I think my favorite part about this is the reliability of cash flow. Right now, I'm cash flowed out until March or April. I don't have to worry. I don't have to spend a lot of time marketing. So there's a lot of time value that Stephen has saved me there. And I know that I have the absolute best guests coming in. I barely have to communicate with them. It's very, very simple. So for me, that's one of my favorite things about having my calendar booked out that far, even though from time to time there are rates where I'm wondering if it could be a little higher. But what I do is I look at my overall monthly and I'm like, oh my God, these are, I'm making 100% profit every month after all my expenses. We're doubling the revenue after expenses. And for me, I'm happy with that. That I can't ask for more than that.
Right.
So we have a couple people that ask some questions here. Stephen, are you taking on new clients for your monthly Price Labs management?
We are, but they have to have a minimum of 5 listings. So it's only like the small to medium kind of guys. A lot of our clients have got like 10, 15, and 20 listings. So ideally somewhere in that range. But we are accepting clients with a minimum of 5. But the reason we've put on this masterclass is for those who've got maybe 1s, 2s, and 3s, so we can try and cater to everybody and let those guys win. So that's the whole reason behind this masterclass, of course.
Awesome. And yeah, the plugin is Rank Breeze's plugin that they've got. You can download that if you have Rank Breeze's software. They give you 5 free searches a month. Somebody asked how far out my calendar is. We have it out for 12 months. Somebody said super property. Thank you very much. Yes, we agree that that is the definition of a super property. I have somebody here, Stephen. We've had trouble finding where on Price Labs to add stepped up discounts or promotions for longer stays. Any guidance?
Yes, so I would say do that in the OTA itself. Yeah, there's not much going on in Price Labs in terms of those kind of discounts. So I would go into the likes of Airbnb and do it within the OTA itself. That would be your best bet.
Yeah. So basically, what you're saying is you're using both tools. You're using not just Price Labs, but you're using the tools that Airbnb has given us to promote the listing.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's important to use the features within the OTA that are native to the OTA because you will get like certain SEO boosts and things like that. Which is obviously something that people do. They set the rates in Price Labs. And if you're not utilizing the tools in Airbnb, you're not necessarily going to get all of the benefits. And each OTA has its own sort of nuance in terms of promotional tools and things. So yeah, make sure that you utilize the features native to Airbnb. 2 things that you could do there would be you've got permanent length of stay discounts that you could use. The other things that you could use are rule sets, which are more like you manually apply a specific discount. Let's say if they stay 3 days, you get X. If they stay 5 days, you get a little bit more. So yeah, make sure to utilize those tools within the platform.
Yeah. And this masterclass, if you guys want to put below in the comments, if you want more information on the masterclass, just go ahead and throw me or throw your email address, whatever it is in there, and let us know that you want to attend this masterclass. It's going to be in November. I think it's just under 30 days. It's going to be for half a day. And then after that, there's going to be some one-on-one Q&A. That masterclass will also have recordings available. And so you guys can come in and grab a copy of those recordings as well. And I'll tell, like, Steven is the best revenue manager I've ever seen. And you guys know I've been doing this for many years now. And what I like is really just the simplicity. So we got a lot of people putting in there. Let's do a couple more quick questions here. People said, I get bogged down with all the small adjustments that Price Labs offers. So in your masterclass, Stephen, are you going to tell people what to focus on and what maybe they could actually disregard in Price Labs?
Yeah, 1,000,000%. In fact, one of the first things that we teach are all the tools that you should actually turn off and not use. That Price Labs will automatically turn on for you. So the first thing that we're going to teach you is what not to do. And then the second thing we're going to teach you is what to do and how to do the best with those tools.
Okay, awesome. What's the typical 6+ month markup that you use to add a bit of a premium, but also keep bookings coming in?
So it would never be a generic markup. We would look at things month on month because let's say we're at a point in the year right now where like February is like the 6 month mark, but I know notoriously the February is a really tough month to sell. Certainly good luck maybe filling midweeks in February because it's a sleeps 12 property or whatever. And then in that case, I'm going gung ho with my promotions right now, knowing that I need maximum lead time to sort of sell that, because it's a tough sell. The market for those dates is going to be difficult. So that's actually one of the things that we teach you to turn off in the actual masterclass, which is don't necessarily go with the far out premium model because it's not always right. It has to be on a monthly basis, based on how much demand there is for that month. We don't want to make life harder for ourselves putting a premium in February right now just because it's 6 months away. We want to do everything we can to fill those difficult to sell months.
Yeah, yeah, and that totally makes sense because as you go through the year, where 6 months lands consistently changes. So sometimes it'll land in slow season, sometimes it'll land in high season.
Yeah.
So having a flat rate that you book that, I think this is exactly what a revenue manager does, right? Is stops you from making those kind of mistakes,
Mhm.
right? And Stephen, I guess my final thing that I would answer, and I will also answer this question: what do you think is the difference in revenue that's possible if you master Pricelabs or not? Like percentage wise, how much more revenue could somebody make by doing what you do or just doing the very basics?
It'd be very difficult to give a sort of blanket number, but I would say it's much more. It really is. It's much, much more. Like I've got a client here in Liverpool that's got about 10 to 15 listings. There's actually several of them. And before I came along, they were happy clients. They were like, we're happy with what we're in, but we're curious to give you a shot. And now I'm far more aggressive than they were with their pricing in terms of like I see empty gaps in those calendars and they're like the enemy and I need to fill them. And so now they're earning considerably more. It could be in some cases it depends on your starting position. If you're struggling to even get your weekends filled, which are like normally the high demand dates to fill, and it could just be a difference of getting those filled. But it could be anything from, I would say, conservative 15% to 35, 40%. It all depends. But I would say it's probably the number one skill that is probably the most difficult to learn typically. That maybe hosts are leaving on the table currently. They've done all the hard work with the interior design, which is obviously one of the big heavy hitters, which determines how many bookings you're going to get. They've photographed it. They've done everything. They're constantly dealing with guests and everything. But the number one skill that you can implement to increase your revenue is 1,000,000% revenue management.
Yeah, yeah, I would totally agree. And my answer for that, I firmly believe that from the very basics, learning this skill and or hiring somebody that's really very good at it will make a difference. It could potentially make a difference of up to 100%. I firmly believe that. I think that if you're just doing the very basics and you're leaving things on autopilot versus having an expert and or learning how to be an expert, you could
Mhm.
double your revenue. And that's
Yeah.
a massive change because at the end of the day, especially if you're buying a short term rental as an investment property in the United States and you are getting a mortgage on it and you have expenses that are potentially $5,000 or $6,000 a month in total, every dollar that you add in extra revenue on top of what you underwrote is all profit. Every time, every dollar is it's 100% profit every time you cover your expenses and then go over that, right? So all of that extra revenue is pure profit. It's all cash on cash return. It's a huge return on investment, I think, to do more revenue than you initially expected. And for us as real estate agents, that's kind of what we do is look at, okay, what is the potential for this property based on what else is around it? And then if we turn this into a super property and we out amenity and out design all the competition, what is the potential on top of that, right,
Mm.
if you do the revenue management, if you add all the things, add all the entertainment, and really create an amazing experience for your guests, what is the true high earning potential of this property? And then try to shoot for that, right? Do everything you can to shoot for that. And we've seen time and time again where doing that it just creates incredible results, just like this property that I bought for 850,000 and will likely do 250,000 year one. Right, Stephen, thank you for joining us today. I'm incredibly excited about your masterclass next month. So we'll go ahead and send out details on that here soon to everybody. If you guys have any additional questions, Stephen won't disappear after this. He can answer some questions in the comments. So continue leaving questions in the comments. If you guys see this video, if you're watching it later, we'll come back and answer as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Stephen, thanks so much, man. Great to see you.
Thank you, Tyler. Thank
All
you.
right, guys.